Good morning everyone. In this video I'm going to be analysing the live price action for EU and DXY to see what trading opportunities there may be for today. You're going to see my technical analysis and my strategy, so if you want to see those then please stick around. Starting off here on the daily chart as usual, we have EU at the top, DXY at the bottom. Now what can we see? We can see that yesterday we closed with this massive bullish candle on EU and obviously massive bearish candle on DXY. Now so far today we haven't moved much, but what we can see is that we have our previous daily highs and lows on both DXY and EU. However, DXY has already swept its previous daily low. You'll see that clearer on the lower time frame, but just to let you know. And on EU you can see we've now come above so many previous highs that clearly we've taken a lot of buy side liquidity, and you'll see on a lower time frame we're more into a premium now. So lastly, DXY is obviously pulled further down into this daily order block in the discount of this leg, and we'll have a look at the lower time frame, see how it goes. So on the 4 hour, just to recap, around this area here where we was consolidating within this bullish leg that we had, same on DXY, we was kind of consolidating, causing a range. Price had its SMC divergence. You can see we made high lows on EU and high highs on DXY. So that meant that DXY was showing some sort of weakness while EU was showing strength because it was making higher lows. Now eventually this played out. You can see we've created this new leg. I've marked out this low here to this high here as the 4 hour leg, just because to me this looks like internal like consolidation. So it wasn't really a break above and a pullback to anything. So I'm keeping this in mind as the entire 4 hour leg. So bearing that in mind, we have our order block down here with fair value gap, which price may at some point come down to for a 4 hour discount. Doesn't mean that price is going to pull back to this point now. However, I believe this is the 4 hour leg. On DXY, we can also see we've very much closed below these previous lows on the 4 hour, meaning we have our bearish leg, we have our bearish bias, obviously the same on EU, right? We've got our higher highs now, and it looks like price is in a bullish trend. If I just zoom out a little bit, we can see that divergence is continuing. We've taken out this high here on EU and we haven't on DXY. We haven't even come down to the order block yet. As I was saying in my previous videos, it looked like price may want to come down here because the imbalance is a draw on price. So now what does this mean? We've got this on the 4 hour, we've got this divergence here with the higher high and higher low. What that's going to represent is that EU has now swept buy side liquidity. We see the higher high as a possible buy side liquidity sweep to sponsor a move back down. And for DXY, it shows strength. Now it may not happen at this point because DXY may want to go down to the order block. However, it shows with the higher low that DXY isn't making lower lows where it should be, while EU is making higher highs. So it may show strength and it may pull back to a premium of the leg. So it shows some weakness, and because we're in a premium, obviously, we can probably start looking for shorts, at least temporary ones, to pull us down to a discount of a leg on the 1 hour or the 4 hour. So I hope that's clear. I have this possible next buy side liquidity target. The next major buy side liquidity is these highs here. Of course, that would mean DXY would need to break these lows and it would be in line with this 4 hour fair value gap here, which is also a price gap still on DXY, which hasn't been filled. So price may go down there. That is for in the future, but just zooming out and showing that scenario. So I hope that was clear. So now let's move on down to the 1 hour. So now onto the hourly. You can see I've marked out this hourly leg here. Remember, this is what I see as the 4 hour leg. But though internally we still have a separate 1 hour bullish leg here. So from this low here to this high, we have this 1 hour order block around the equilibrium just into the discount, right, with a fair value gap. that price may pull back to. You can see we're quite corrective at the moment, coming from this premium after taking all of this buy side liquidity, which this line shows here. We also have our bearish 1 hour leg here on DXY with the same order block just here into the premium. So these, as I've noted here, can be a draw on price. So for our shorts, we can possibly target this area where we're going to see some sort of support. It may not reverse price. Obviously there's going to be a more of a discount here and maybe a 4 hour POI as well. But just on the hourly, this probably will provide some sort of support, maybe a temporary reversal, but it's a positive that it's a price draw for when we are looking for shorts. Now we have this minor 1 hour order block here because we created a fair value gap from it. I've just noted it as an area to be aware of. We did sweep sell side liquidity internally and reject this 1 hour fair value gap and pull back to it. And we'll see those opportunities obviously on the M15 and why that's a negative. As I said earlier, you can see we've swept our previous daily low. We haven't had a massively bullish reaction from it, but it is sell side liquidity swept nonetheless. Price is still continuing bearish at this time though. So the structure on the 1 hour time frame is very clear. We can see we've got our bearish and bullish legs. We can see where the trend is and we can see we're in a premium and we've taken loads of historical buy side liquidity. Now we're just looking for high probability trades to see if we can get into any using this price action. Now let's go down to the M15 and see if there's any opportunities. Before we proceed looking at any opportunities, I do just want to note we have loads of red folder news today. Like there's so much news today. Again, as I've been saying for the last couple of days, red folder news, price tends to not move very well. We could get our moves in London obviously, but when it comes to nearing the New York session, price usually will accumulate and just create buy side and sell side liquidity for that news manipulation, right? So we may not get any opportunities in New York, so I'll probably just concentrate on London and let news play out. There's quite a lot of it, as I mentioned. Just to give you a quick overview, here's all of the news. This is in London local time. You can see 1:15, 1:30, 1:45, 3, 4:30. So there's not much space to execute trades in, especially when price won't be moving in a familiar fashion beforehand. Down to the M15, looking at these opportunities. You can see today we've had this corrective price action. We are in a premium. Sells are definitely a good idea, right? We have this SMC divergence here with this high and lower high. And on DXY, you can see we have a low and lower low. Pay no attention to this line just yet. We have a low and lower low, which is for this high and lower high. So that would mean weakness from EU because EU is making lower highs. And it would look as if that this lower low was a grab of sell side liquidity to sponsor a move higher on DXY. So that would also play into our hands for shorts. We've had this breaker structure here. The problem is now we don't have that breaker structure on the M15. On DXY, it swept that buy side liquidity, whereas EU broke below, but it's also now rejected this 1 hour fair value gap to do its pullback, which was still corrective, so it's not the worst, especially when we're in a premium and you know everything else makes sense. But yeah, we've swept here. We're failing to make the higher high, and as I've noted here, we've got opposing SMC. So now if we look from this high to this high, that is the higher high lower high. We also have a higher low lower low on EU, which looks like EU, of course it's the opposite of the other way, has taken sell side liquidity and now is strength to pull back, and DXY is showing weakness because it's not making the higher highs. Because it's not making the higher highs, like you can see this low here is taking out here, we're nowhere near here, so we've made lower highs. That shows some weakness in DXY, so I'm a bit conflicted about this immediate opportunity that you can see I've maybe drawn out here. We have our 1 hour order block, which was, you know, small, but it's still there. We have an M15 order block as well, or fair value gap. And if we go down to the M5, we have a 5-minute order block here. And you can see we swept internal liquidity during Asia. These things add to the bias, obviously. We've swept that buy side liquidity internally, we've manipulated some stops, broke down, and we've had this nice corrective pullback, and we're coming up to the 5-minute order block again, where the entry would be, and we can continue that lower, right, with the order flow of the day towards this POI that draws price. Now we have loads of confluences on our side, but we also have negatives, right? We swept buy side liquidity here, we've got opposing SMC, we haven't made higher highs on DXY, so it isn't very straightforward, not at all. It looks like DXY has the room to continue going lower, which will push this higher. It may want the buy side liquidity above here, it may sweep this low again before actually making a structural break. So I'm not going to take this trade because I'm very indecisive with it. But that's the opportunity, the first opportunity that is available today that I would show you. It may turn out that we miss it, but we may have continuations if we continue to break lows. Right, so if this trade does work out and we break this low here, just to the left, we may have some sort of corrective pullback to a POI to continue lower if DXY looks better because it's broken and making higher highs. So we'd still have the POI price draw, and we would also have, you know, the higher low, higher high going on here. This 1 hour fair value gap wouldn't be as much of a negative because price hasn't changed order flow from it, and all those things would be on our side. So I think I'll be patient. I'll wait for this pullback, this internal break. This could prove me wrong, but then it could come up and sweep some more buy side liquidity and sell side liquidity here and then make another break, and that also would be good, right? So we could see that same thing happen above here. Okay, so I hope that's also very clear. Now those are just the immediate intraday opportunities that I would see. I think price, let's go up to the M15. I think it makes a lot of sense for price to continue lower on EU down to at least the 1 hour discount towards this price draw at least. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to look for sales here. I don't see any buy opportunities immediately here. Of course, the first place I would look for buys would be down here. And as usual, my strategy would be this. We go into this environment, we create a structure, possibly sweep the low, break higher, and then we can look for our corrective pullback to go higher and continue with our trend. So that would be on side, but we want the POI to hold, we want the POI to shift our structure and show us its intent to continue going higher. And for now, while we're in this premium with all this buy side liquidity swept and the sell side liquidity swept on DXY, I would be looking for sales. Like I said earlier, on a higher time frame, we do have more room below here for price to come into, and price just may do that. So I hope that was clear. Hope you gained value from that. Anything that you want to ask, let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.